Yo, what's good, YouTube, man? It's Gabriel, just another Fan TV, back at another video. Today, I want to talk about three of the biggest draft takeaways I got from this Ravens draft class, right? What the front office and coaches could be thinking about with their players going into next season, and just what I think could be happening just based off how the Ravens attacked the draft over these last 3 days, all right? So let's get right into it, all right? So I got two on offense, one on defense. We're going to start with offense first, all right? So for offense, I think the Ravens showed throughout this draft cycle that they believe in a young offensive lineman, right? I remember Daniel Jeremiah moved the sticks podcast like that. He came on the Ravens Lounge podcast, with Garrett Down and Ryan Mink, right? And they talked about just some prospects, okay? And he said that he bet that the Ravens would draft at least three offensive linemen in this upcoming draft class, right? They end up drafting two, right? So you get Roger Rosengarten in the second round. Then they don't draft another offensive lineman until you get to Nick Samac in the seventh round, right? So really, they drafted one real offensive lineman that's going to compete for a job. All right. So now, what does this tell us, right? That the Ravens believe in the development of Voorhees, Ben Cleveland, Falele, and then, some veteran guys like McCary as well, right? So this is kind of where they were, not to bring it up again, but like how they were with the wide receivers, right? Where like, oh, we believe in our guys, we trust our guys, right? They're betting on a lot of guys that haven't had extended run in the NFL to be their starting offensive lineman, right? Now, this is a very boomer bust thing. This could be something that like, wow, the Ravens have a young, athletic offensive line, guys that could do it all in the zone blocking scheme, get out, pull, make all the necessary adjustments, or they could just be look like the guys that are inexperienced, and we could have some of the issues that they had last year when they said they were remaking the offensive line, right? So I know a lot of people, especially the way the draft played out, even more so like, well, why would you get rid of Morgan Moses? I think the Ravens need to move on and get younger, more athletic on the offensive line. And Morgan Moses was just one of those guys that just had to be moved on from, right? I was a little surprised about Zeitler, but for the most part, the Ravens wanted to get younger, quicker, more athletic, right? If we look at how Tom Munkin wants to use the zone scheme, these guys have to be able to move in space and get out in space. He wants to be anybody and everybody has to be able to move and shift across the line when it comes to pulling, whatever, right? So they have to be able to move in space. So Roger Rosengarten is a guy that makes a lot of sense, and I think he has probably be the favorite to start at right tackle right now. So the Ravens draft class is showing me that they really believe in this young offensive line. Right? They didn't draft a bunch of guys. They haven't run in a bunch of vets yet. Obviously they've signed a lot of guys UDFA. That's going to compete, training camp bodies, things like that. But as far as draft cycle and free agency before that, they're trusting in this young offensive line. Now, what they might do is what some of the Ravens have done in the past is where they'll let a position kind of be weak for like maybe 1 or 2 weeks of training camp to see how the guys look. And if they don't like how they look, they'll go sign some players, right? So that's what we're kind of at with that. All right. Now the second thing is, I think the Ravens are finally have designed or defined roles in this wide receiver room, right? So when they draft a guy like Tez Walker, right? I mentioned this plenty of times by now, right? Is that the Ravens never really replaced the deep threat that Hollywood Brown was, right? They never really replaced that guy, the guy that had chemistry with Lamar Jackson to get over top, right? They never replaced that. Okay, so when you draft Tez Walker, and that's his main attribute, like that's his selling point, is the fact that he's a good deep ball wide receiver. I think that they're making up for honestly what they've done the last 2 years and not replacing that guy, right? The year before, we know what we not the year before, 2 years ago, we know what the wide receiver core was like. It wasn't very good. It all depended on Rashad Bateman. He got hurt and went down, right? Last year, I think signed Odell. They revamped the wide receiver core, brought in Aguilar, brought in Zay Flowers. But it's a lot of guys that do the same kind of things, right? So what did that leave? That left, once again, Rashad Bateman on the outside, running goal routes, running things that he's not comfortable with doing, right? Now with Tez Walker here, I feel like everybody in this offense has a design role that they are comfortable with and can flourish in, right? Bateman, I saw somebody say, Bateman could be, the chain mover, right? Zay Flowers is your kind of your do-it-all receiver, yak guy, route runner, all that. He does it all, right? And Tez Walker is your deep threat. Now, I'm not coming in here expecting Tez Walker to be a 1,000 yard, even a 500 yard receiver year one, right? I'm not expecting that. But it's about the threat of when he's on the field, teams have to be like, okay, this guy has speed, he can get over top. All right. When you just have the threat of that, teams have to respect it. Whether or not, no matter how good they think the wide receiver is or not, they have to respect the fact that he can blow past your secondary, right? He can get past your safety. They have to respect that, no matter what they think of the guy or not, right? So I think that the Ravens have clear wide receiver roles, and they have different types of wide receivers to fill these roles, so it's not too much samey things going on, right? A bunch of wide receivers that all kind of do the same things. That's a good thing. You want to have a diverse wide receiver room, and I think the Ravens have finally accomplished that, right? Now they can still add another guy, another vet, something like that, and we'll see where it goes from there. But right now, I like where they stand, and we'll see what happens. Kind of like when I talk about off the line, they'll go 1-2 weeks in training camp, see how they like it. If they don't like it, maybe they'll add a vet, right? All right. Now the last one on defense, right? And to me, this is the most interesting one, right? When we thought about the Ravens last year, right, it was a lot of disguising coverages. It was a lot of too high, guys kind of roaming around. You don't know who's coming, simulated pressures, right? I don't think the Ravens are going to get away from that entirely because, Zach Orr did learn under Mike McDonald, pretty much was his right-hand man when it came to calling the defense. But just by the way the Ravens attacked this draft class, right? You get Nate Wiggins, you get TJ Tampa, right? These are two guys who excel in man-to-man coverage, press man-to-man coverage, right? You get Marlon Humphrey, not get, but you already have Marlon Humphrey, you already have Brandon Stevens. They excel in physical press man-to-man coverage, right? So for me, this is the takeaway about the defense is the fact that I think the Ravens are going to be a lot more physical on the outside and they play a lot more man-to-man coverage, right? Now, not to say they didn't play man-to-man last year, but the Ravens did a lot of disguise zones, dropping out. You don't know who's coming, simulated pressure, like I said earlier. Now, I think they could do well. We're just going to line up our guys across from your guys, and we're going to beat up your receivers, right? We're going to press you at the line of scrimmage, and if you can get off of it, cool. If not, good luck. You're going to stick right here, right? I think that's great, right? When you have this era of this passing era, right? You want to be able to disrupt the timing of the passing game. And there's no better way to do it than getting your hands on receivers, right? So, like I said, when you get Nate Wiggins and TJ Tampa, who are mostly outside corners, right? That pushes a guy like Marlon Humphrey inside. And Marlon Humphrey did a lot of his best work playing nickel cornerback. So now Marlon, a bigger corner, can maybe press up on some of these smaller nickel guys. Like even if teams are playing a big power slot kind of player, well, Marlon can match that guy's physicality as well. So they can do a lot of different things. I don't think the defense is going to be completely different from how it was under Mike McDonald, but I do think under Zach Orr, the Ravens are trying to kind of trend towards a more physical approach, especially from your DBs on the outside. So I thought that was really, really interesting the way that they attacked this draft because for me, right, I wasn't saying outside corner was the biggest thing the Ravens need to address in the draft, but they saw two guys. You could say the best player available. However, they drafted those two guys, right? They want to have as many cornerbacks as possible because cornerback is a position that it goes down a lot. The Ravens were out Jalen Armour Davis and Pepe Williams for most of last year. Now those two guys potentially have been replaced, right? So you want to have as many cornerbacks as possible, right? Arthur Maulet is back. Darius Washington, can play some nickel as well. So I think the Ravens are really setting up to have a very, very deep and loaded secondary, but their style of play could be different, right? I know there was some not concerns, but I know some fans saying that last year Chiefs game, right? The Ravens kind of got bullied, right? I think that the Ravens kind of want to change that style of play and be way more physical on the outside. So we'll see where it goes from there. I think the Ravens will still be a nice mixture of man and zone, but I think we could see a lot more zone, a lot more things that we used to see, right? Whereas, heavy man coverage with some more blitz with more blitzing in behind it, right? So, that comes with its risk, but it also comes with its rewards of speeding the quarterbacks up, not giving them time. So, we don't know what Zach Orr is going to do exactly. I mean, he's his own man. He's not Mike McDonald. He's going to do things his own way. But I like the way the Ravens are going. I think they're going to be a very, very physical defense next year, especially in that secondary. So that's my thoughts on it, man. Give me your draft takeaways. What did you learn about the Ravens draft? Well, what did you learn from the Ravens draft class, I should say? We'll talk about it in the comments, man. But those are my three right there. But, like I said, that's it right there. It's Gabriel, Fan TV. I'm out.